You can have the right strategy, the right systems, the right metrics, a real long-term advantage, and still lose to a customer with weaker execution but faster decisions. In my career, I have seen more growth plateau from slow decision making than from bad strategy. The best plans do not always win, but the fastest learners do. In this video, I'm going to break down the letter L in my signal framework, and L stands for leadership. Can decisions be made fast and clearly? Here is what I see constantly. I see smart teams, they have a good strategy and a clear opportunity, but every decision takes 6 to 8 weeks. They want to model more, get more input, or do some more reviews. But by the time they decide, the opportunity is gone or a competitor has moved. The issue here is not the lack of intelligence. I believe that the problem is lack of clarity about what matters, what does not, and who decides. Your competitors are not smarter than you, they are just faster. While you are in your third meeting debating the plan, they have already launched, learned, and iterated. Speed of learning beats quality of first attempt, and that's what most businesses miss. They optimize for being right. The best businesses optimize for learning fast. Let me show you the difference between fast businesses and slow businesses, and it's not what you think. Let's talk about slow businesses first. Every decision requires 3 to 5 meetings. Consensus is the goal, and everyone has to agree before anything happens. And fear of being wrong paralyzes action. What if we are wrong? This becomes the question that stops everything. They want to gather more data, and this becomes the default response to any decision. These companies optimize for not being wrong, so they move slowly, carefully, and deliberately, and they lose. On the other hand, in fast companies, decisions have clear owners. One person is accountable for the outcome. They encourage disagreements. You can argue, you can voice concerns, but once the owner decides, everyone executes. It is expected to be wrong, but it's not a failure, it's data. The question is not, are we right? They ask the question, how fast can we learn? Let's test it. This is the default, not let's model it more. The difference here is not intelligence or strategy, it's leadership clarity. Fast businesses know who decides, how they decide, and when they decide. Slow companies do not. So what actually kills decision speed? I've audited dozens of businesses stuck in slow decision cycles, and the same 3 things show up every single time. Unclear ownership. If 3 to 5 people think they own a decision, no one actually does. And this is what looks like in practice. Marketing wants to test a new channel because they think they own the decision, but the sales department has opinions because it affects their pipeline, and maybe finance needs to approve the budget. And the product department wants input because it affects the messaging. So now you have 4 stakeholders and no one has clear authority. And every meeting ends with aligning offline, or maybe let's bring this to the leadership team. 3 weeks later, you are still not decided. Every decision needs one owner. You do not need a committee, a consensus, just one person accountable. And that person consults relevant stakeholders. They gather the input, they consider the perspectives, then they decide. If the decision is wrong, they own it. And if it's right, they own that too. Clear ownership is the foundation of decision speed. When everyone has to agree, nothing controversial happens. And growth is always controversial. Growth requires trade-offs. Investment here means less investment there. Prioritizing this means deprioritizing something. If you need everyone to agree, you will only do safe things and small things, things no one objects to. The best businesses replace consensus with disagree and commit. This is how it works. You can disagree during the decision process. Argue your position, you can voice your concerns and even present data. But once the owner decides, you commit fully. You do not undermine it. You won't wait for it to fail so you can say, I told you so. You execute as if it was your decision. Amazon calls this disagree and commit. At Netflix, they call it farming for dissent, then deciding. The language does not matter, the principle does. You want disagreement before the decision, but you want commitment after the decision. Consensus cultures get neither. Everyone smiles and nods, and then nothing happens. Waiting for perfect information guarantees that you will be late. Let's say you're deciding whether to test a new acquisition channel. You could model it for 6 weeks, you can build financial projections, maybe get input from 8 to 10 people and run scenario analysis. Or maybe you will have 90% confidence in your decision. Or you can just decide in 3 days with 70% confidence, launch and learn within 2 weeks. If this works, you're 5 weeks ahead of the first approach. And if it does not work, you learn faster and can pivot. The best decision with fast execution beats the perfect decision that's 3 months late. Because in growth, speed of learning matters more than being right the first time. Your competitor is not waiting for perfect data. They're already on version 3 while you're still modeling version 1. I work with a SaaS company stuck at $22 million in revenue. They had a smart team, really smart, good strategy. They had a clear market opportunity, but every growth initiative took 6 to 8 weeks to decide. If they had to test a new channel, it required 6 weeks of modeling, meetings, and reviewing. If there was a pricing change, it required around 10 weeks of debating. And for every new campaign, they waited for 4 weeks for discussions. This is what was happening. The CEO wanted input from everyone: marketing, sales, product, finance, customer success. And everyone had opinions, and everyone's opinion carried equal weight. So every decision required alignment across 5 executives. And because they had a consensus culture, no one wanted to be the person who said, let's just do it. So they kept modeling, kept debating, and kept reviewing week after week. By the time they decided on something, the market had already moved. The competitor had already launched similar things, and the opportunity had shifted. They were not losing because of bad strategy, they were losing because they were too slow. Here is what we changed. We started by creating a RACI matrix for every type of decision. If there was a new channel, the CMO would decide. Sales and finance would be consulted, and everyone else would be informed. If there was a pricing change, the CEO would decide. The CMO, the CRO, and the CFO are consulted. If there is a new product feature, the head of product would decide, but the CMO and the CRO are consulted. Every initiative had one owner. The person was accountable, good or bad. The owner would consult relevant people, they would gather the input, and they would listen to concerns, and then they decide, know what was required. There was nothing about let's align here. They just decided. We decide by Friday with the information we have, not let's review next week. If we do not have perfect data by Friday, we decide anyway. This forces prioritization. What data actually matters? Get that and ignore the rest. We also implemented disagree and commit kind of culture. You can disagree during the decision process. In fact, the owner should actively solicit disagreement. What am I missing? What could go wrong? Why might this fail? But once the decision is made, everyone commits. And even if you disagreed, even if you think it won't work, you execute fully and you support it publicly and you give it the best chance to succeed. If it fails, fine, you learn and you pivot, but you do not sabotage it to prove you were right. And within 90 days of implementing these things, the decision speed went from 6 to 8 weeks to 3 to 5 days for most growth initiatives. They tested more channels, they launched more campaigns, ran more experiments, they learned faster and adapted quicker. The revenue growth went from 18% annually to 41% over the next 18 months. They had the same team, the same budget, the same market, but faster decisions. So how do you know if you have a decision speed problem? These are the questions I ask when I audit a business. How long does it take to decide on a new growth initiative? Track this for at least 5 last decisions. If it's more than 2 weeks on average, you have a decision speed issue. Can you name the owner of every major decision type? If there's a new channel, who decides that? If there's a pricing change or a campaign creative, who is the decision maker? If the answer is that we all decide together, you do not have clear ownership. How many people need to approve a $10,000 growth experiment? If the answer is more than two, you have too many approvers. Small experiments should be fast. One owner, maybe one approval or the budget holder, that's it. When was the last time you disagreed and committed? If everyone always agrees, you either have a consensus problem or a culture issue. The best teams argue during the decision and then they commit after. How many decisions are you revisiting? If you keep reopening deciding topics because someone is not on board, you do not have real commitment. Decide once, execute, learn, and adjust if needed. But don't keep revisiting the same decision. Decision speed is not recklessness. It's clarity about what matters, what does not, and who decides. It's clear ownership. Disagree and commit. Testing over modeling, and learning over being right. If your growth is slowing down and decisions takes weeks, you don't have a strategy problem. Look into the leadership. Fix decision speed and everything else would get easier. Speed adds up. Hesitation kills momentum. If you want to audit your decision speed, I have built a framework. It's called the Leadership Decision Framework. This framework walks you through decision ownership mapping, speed audits, and how to implement the disagree and commit culture. I will drop the link in the description below. Have a beautiful day.